I kid you not, I stopped doing that degree and I switched to business administration. Like I was like, you know what? I don't think this is going to be for me, because
Not
I
my
really
jam.
don't like other people's kids. And at the time I didn't have my own kids. And so but in my head, I was like, nah, I don't, your kid's bad. And I could tell they don't get,
Good.
I could
Right.
tell they don't get punished. All right, y'all. Hey, welcome to another episode of Mediocre Dads, where being mediocre is a choice. You have to refuse being mediocre every single day. I'm your host, Quan. I go by Q, and I am joined by another special guest who, I reached out to him. I think it was last year, and I was really eager to and it's not even his fault. I'm not saying like that's not a dig by any means, but I reached out to him and I told my wife, I was like, because this was like the first when I was really, really started reaching out to people and saying like, hey, want to come on the podcast, whatever the case might be. And, I remember telling my wife about you, and I was like, hey, I'm really excited. I was like, look at this dude. This is what he's got going on. This is what he's doing. I think it'd be really cool to have him on. And, time went by and you responded, and I was like, my goodness, and super excited. So it really excited me to have you on because I was like, man, this is what it's all about. This is like to really be able to connect with people, and especially with people who are doing bigger and greater things. I think it's amazing, especially within the community, because, we overlook the community a lot. We overlook it a lot. But I'm not here to take his thunder, guys. I have here SF Banks, really cool dude. I can already tell right off the bat. We were kind of chit-chatting beforehand, and I'm really excited for this episode. But before we get too much into it, SF, can you tell the audience a little bit about yourself?
Absolutely. Well, Q, first, thank you so much for having me on the show.
Absolutely.
Really excited about it, and just to be able to have a conversation and talk about whatever it is that we're going to talk about. And as far as me, man, I mean, basically what I do for a living is I show people how to become successful at whatever it is that they want to do. In that, I do youth development, work on people development, just to kind of, in the simplest way. So that's Camp Warrior King, summer camp that basically shows children, expose them to activities they normally wouldn't experience during the school year. That ranges from there to, you can have it all with our youth conferences, to, adult conferences and, success coaching, as I call it, just showing people how to live their version of success. And so that's what I've been doing now for the past, over 20 years, actually. And, and I enjoy it. When I'm not doing that, I'm spending time with my family.
That's awesome. A lot of people, when they get into the realm of helping people and really just wanting to help change people's lives and impact people's lives, especially young people, there's usually a correlation of something that happened or impacted them in their life that led them to doing that. So I'm not saying something did happen to you, but is there something in your life that as you were growing up that you said, hey, this is what I'm meant to do. This is my purpose here?
That's a great question. So with the personal development aspect, it started actually, what really kind of triggered things for me is my aunt and cousin were murdered in a domestic violence situation.
Damn, I'm sorry to
And
hear that.
that's kind of where everything really started as far as this journey. So, my aunt and cousin were murdered, of course, by her husband. And I always wanted to do something in their honor. This happened when I was like maybe 16, and it just rocked my family, as you can imagine. So, time passed. A lot of time passed, actually, pretty like about a decade almost. And then I started teaching self-defense to women and children is how it started.
Mm.
Teaching martial arts programs and after school. And so I saw there was a huge need for that. But then as I started working with the kids, I started seeing there was a bigger need as far as their development. They were lacking a lot of personal skills that you could see were needed just for them to do well in school. And so, it just kind of grew from there. And so from there, I opened up a summer camp because they needed more than just the classes they were getting once a week, and they wouldn't get anything during the summer. So, okay, let's open up in summer camp. They can get more development. And so from there, I just kept feeling the need. And so it wasn't anything that I thought I was supposed to do with my life. To be honest with you, I couldn't stand kids when I started this. And so it's kind of funny that we're here now, actually. 20
That's
years later
awesome.
here.
I started my bachelor's degree way back in like 2015 because I wanted to be a history teacher, but I wanted to teach high school history. And because I generally love helping young people, especially adolescents when they're at that point in their life where they feel, and I'm going to be honest, it's more of their feelings than anything, but they feel like, hey, the world is just crushing in inside around them, and there's just so much going on. Tiffany broke up with Sam, and Sam's world is completely shattered, and Sam's like, the world's over, the world's ending tomorrow.
Right.
Tiffany's over here just crying, just like, oh my gosh, the world's gonna end tomorrow. Just completely in shambles. But I wanted to help influence them, and so I thought, hey, I'm gonna be a history teacher. And, sure enough, I got halfway through that degree program, and I realized I was like, I love history, and I love, learning about history and even trying to teach people history. However, what I don't like is other people's kids. And so, like, I was like, I don't know if this is for me. So I literally, I kid you not, I stopped doing that degree, and I switched to business administration. Like, and I was like, you know what? I don't think this is going to be for me, because I really don't like other people's kids. And, at the time I didn't have my own kids. And so I was like, but in my head, I was like, nah, I don't, your kid's bad. And I could tell they don't get
good. Right.
I could tell they don't get punished at home.
Right.
Like, they're acting crazy in the store, and I'm ready to come drop kick them for you.
Right.
I'm not trying to get a charge or anything. I'm just saying, maybe we can,
hey, maybe we can work this out.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh man, but
help me out. Help me help you.
Exactly. But it's crazy how the Lord works, and how He always redirects us to wanting and to putting us back on the path in which He originally had, set for us. I'm not saying I'm going to be a history teacher, but, being pursuing and being a youth pastor, helping young kids is where my mind is kind of at right now. And it's because, again, like, I still see the need to help kids, but it's just, again, other people's kids, man. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
And you deal with kids, so like sometimes I'm like, hey, look, I promise if you leave them over my house for a week, they will leave here saying, yes, sir, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am, but just don't ask how we got there.
Right. As long as you don't ask how we got there, it would be, I like,
because
how we got
there's going to be a lot of stern talking tos. And, I understand that, a lot of kids who've never had a stern talking to, it can be very traumatizing for the first time when someone, especially when a man talks to you for the first time very sternly, you're like, I've never experienced this. What is this going? What is happening?
Oh yeah.
Anyway, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I know about my nonsense, but so you got into you're doing the martial arts things, you're doing the summer camps, you're helping young kids develop and all through all these things through martial arts. Where did that start for you? I guess where did the martial arts part start for you?
Well, here, let me just real quick before I get to that.
Okay.
I have found over my years of working with kids that the issue a lot of times isn't the kids, it's their parents.
Yeah, man, yeah.
The kids, I mean, so now some of them are like, yo, this one right here this one has some extra issues that are above what I'm able to do. But the parents, well, I'll tell you, I got some stories about some parents. But anyway, how I
want to hear those stories. I really do.
Yeah, I got plenty of them. I got plenty, man. And the thing is that the longer I do this, the crazier the stories are becoming because people are changing. And so just to be able to see how people were, just 5 years ago, right? So not even 10, 15 years ago, but if I just can go back to pre-COVID, and there is a huge difference in children pre-COVID, post-COVID, parenting pre-COVID, post-COVID, and I'm sure there's tons of studies on just the effects of COVID, probably 15 years from now, if that long, because of the way information works. We're going to see a ton of information on the effects of just the COVID generation, because it's amazing just what's happening. And we can get into that. I got into martial arts. My mom actually is how it started. My mom put me into martial arts when I was about 6 years old because we were living in inner city. I'm from inner city Seattle. And, the first thing normally if people are like Seattle, like there's black people in Seattle. I'm like, yeah, absolutely. And we were black people everywhere. Everywhere. But I grew up in what was called the CD at the time, the Central District. And my mom was like, okay, let me make sure this kid has some discipline, some structure. Like I said, my dad, who I talk to regularly now, they just weren't together. It just didn't work out for their relationship. But my mom was like, I was getting in trouble in school. Things were happening again in martial arts. And so I kept that trait. I kept that skill. I always stayed in the martial arts. I mean, I grew up as a kid watching Sho Kosugi on these Revenge of the Ninja movies. And just the whole thing was my jam. Bruce Lee's buried in Seattle, right? So it's just like, it was just like prophecy, if you will, that I would be in the martial arts. I mean, the Ninja Turtles and all this stuff. So I got into it and stuck with it. And when I became an adult, it remained a passion, and was a skill that I had. And so when the market tanked at one time, a buddy of mine said, look, why don't we start self-defense program? And I'm like, yeah, why don't we do that? But I don't want to work with people's kids. Like, I don't want to be working with anybody's stinky kids, man. I was serving at my church, and they would put me in the children's ministry. I couldn't stand that. I just could not stand being in the children's ministry. I didn't want to be there, right? I wanted to be where the action was gonna be, right? I was on an operations team and stuff like that, and so. If you're familiar with the church, if you're doing operations, you're basically doing whatever it takes, right? It's like if something happens in the church, you're the people that go and handle whatever it is, whether it's a lady falls down the stairs or somebody's coming in the church, whatever it is, that's your job. And so I wanted to be where that was. I didn't want to be around booger fingers and snot and, all that. But that's where they kept putting me. And so I would complain about it, just, long story short, I would complain about it, finally got an understanding. And then, poof, here I am. Working with kids. So, it's definitely interesting how it all came together for me.
That's awesome. I want to get my daughter into martial arts, man, but I'm not gonna lie. Because I live in San Antonio right now, and it can be very, very expensive. And I'm like, man, I want to get them in there, but also I don't want to just put them in some place that I see on Google saying like, this is just a place for them to pretend they're kicking around and throwing punches or doing whatever. Like it's like, hey, if I'm going to invest in this, I want to invest in something that's going to be profitable in the end for her. You know what I mean?
Right.
How I think about it, and I'm sure how your mom thought about it, was like, I'm investing in your future.
Yeah.
Your future, you may not become a fighter one day per se, but you will, the discipline that you'll gain from fighting and understanding what happens if you fight or when you throw a punch and when you kick somebody, like the repercussions of that develops a part of your brain that you just like, oh, like, no, I don't want to harm people, but I will protect myself, and I don't think people really see it, understand it. And I'll be honest with you, I've never been in martial arts before a day in my life. However, being in Afghanistan is when that really, and coming back, that's when it really kind of was like, oh, like, hey, I love firearms. I love shooting, going to the rifle range, doing all those things, right? But I also understand like the consequences of, a bullet leaving that the barrel, right? You know what I mean? And what could happen in like the actual things. Like we all think that we see the movie John Wick, right? And people think like, oh, look how he's moving, it's so cool. And it's like, don't get me wrong, that's cool, right? Cool action movie. But like just for a moment, for a second, let's separate the two and understand like, no, like those are actually like, he's actually killing people, right? These are actually actual deaths that are happening, right? Or not actual deaths, it's a movie, but like, in a sense like happening. That, like death is happening. And it's, so it's like, it's not how the movies portray it. Like when John Wick shoots somebody and then they just fall down and, that's it. There's nothing over there. Don't look over there. No. That's an atrocious sight over there. That's something that bullets are chaos,
Right.
And so anyway, like that's where that lesson was ingrained in me. And I was like, okay, like I love the range and I love, shooting, and I can still carry all the time. However, I will not, I told my wife, I was like, hey, if I don't have to, if I can leave the situation, if I can, put myself somewhere else, I will, because I don't want to have to use my firearm, because it's like, that's going to scar not only, well, I'm already pretty scarred, but that's going to scar somebody, her, the kids, and that other person's family, and that other person, so anyway, I understand,
and,
go ahead. Sorry.
Well, I was going to say, and, the thing is that at this point, it's, things are different. than what it was 10, 15, 20 years ago. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
just whereas, you know, you shoot somebody now, you don't necessarily just get to walk away. It's not like a
Yeah.
movie, right? It's,
Mm-hmm.
you got to go through you got to go through some stuff, right? It's some
Yeah.
crap. You're going to end up having to go to court. You're going to end up having to prove that you were trying to defend yourself, and God forbid that you can't prove it, even
Yeah.
though you may actually have been doing it, and so then, and whoever the person is that shot, I mean, right. It's like, it's so many different things that come into that. But, at the same time, it's that same thing where the way the world is now, the peace of mind of having one makes a huge difference. And so, as we're talking as far as with kids and being able to defend themselves and wanting to invest in a martial arts program, what I've learned, what I've seen is that, I have a 7-year-old, and my 7-year-old wants to learn all this stuff, right? And so I'm like, look, dude, we can just go in the garage, right? And you're in the military, you can go in your garage and teach your daughters everything they really need to know at this
Mm-hmm.
age, right? And save all of that money, because it's not like they're walking down the street by themselves, right?
Yeah.
They're not at the bars, they're not in all these places. But and the other thing is that what happens is that with martial arts, because it is a self-focused kind of thing, there's not a team around. It takes a lot of effort. You have to do it for a long time. Most kids burn out before they get out of elementary school. So
Oh
you
wow.
spent, unless a kid unless you have it's a discipline issue or some things that you want them to really get, a lot of them burn out. So what happens is that by the time they're in the fourth grade, they've done it from second to fourth grade. They're like, dude, I'm over it. Like my son played baseball, and I started when he was 4. And by 9, he said, Dad, I don't want to do baseball anymore. I'm like, why not? He's like, well, dude, I've been doing it over half my life. And I'm like, I guess you have been doing it over half your life if you're 9 and you started when you were 4. So baseball is different, but with martial arts, if you want them to really get it, then it's okay to start them when they're a little older, right? Middle school, right?
Yeah.
Middle school, going into high school. They may not want to do it because it doesn't look cool, but she's going to have the chance of her having an altercation and really needing to use her protect herself is going to be greater as she gets older. And you want her to continue to want her to remember it. They're not going to remember what they learned at third grade when they're in the 8th grade or the 9th grade.
Mm-hmm.
But you start in 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade, going into high school, they're going to remember all that going into college, right? Hey, look,
Yeah.
the next 4 years, 3, 4 years, going to be in martial arts. So that when you go off to college and you become a woman and you're out here and you're away from my home, you know how to kick somebody's butt and defend yourself. And so that might just be a good approach. You got some time.
Yeah. No. Yeah. My daughter's 6. She turns 7 later this year. So I definitely definitely like that. And also, I would say, I want my kids to be able to feel like they have the ability to be kids. Because
Absolutely.
I think a lot of culture today there's a huge rush to make adults, and it's like, hey, now, let's let them enjoy it. I think about, so I'm 30 years old, and so when I was a kid, we were always outside, we were always doing something active, right? We were able to be kids and just do what kids do,
Yeah.
and so by the time I was in high school, and doing, still a kid, of course, but still at that point where you're trying to, you're going from adolescence to an adult, uh, the transition was easier. The drive to want to be older, to be an adult was there, because it's like I felt had already done all the kid things. Now, that's not complete truth in the sense of hey, I was still a kid, of course,
Right.
uh,
Right.
but it was, I was ready to be an adult. I felt I was ready to be an adult. So I tried to mimic the adults and do adult things, not in every aspect, but in a lot of different ways. And, that transition again for me was a lot easier. Whereas nowadays, I don't think kids have that ability to make that transition because it's a lot harder. And it actually, I think it speaks to what you were talking about earlier and because it happened within the last 5 years with COVID and what happened with the kids just being feeling like they were trapped in their homes, and there was no sense of entertainment. So you had to, you were always looking at a screen, whether it was for school or whether it was was for your entertainment, or whether it was because you wanted to play video games and because you were bored, right? You like there was there was this constant entertainment, this constant screen in your face, and so it created awkward kids who were sociable, who are now awkward because they hadn't had that interaction with people, because truthfully, I think there was a scare that made people feel like if you left your homes, you were going to contract COVID, and if you left your homes and you contracted COVID, then you're probably going to die. And that was like, and I think that fear mongering that was used, I think it really drove kids into a shell, whereas they don't know how to cope with problems in their life now. Because I have soldiers, man, who I'll tell you, it's crazy, because us and who have been in for a hot minute, we'll call them COVID babies, meaning like, you're like, you'll deal with a certain soldier and you'll be like, did you go to basic training during COVID? They're like, oh yeah, I was like, it was still COVID when I went. I'm like, got it. It makes sense now. I have to deal with you. I have to deal with you a different way, because you're not going to respond to how most soldiers would previously respond. And there's a lot of different aspects to it. But for me, what I've noticed, a lot of it is a sense of entitlement, and where it's like, hey man, like, I'm the first person that's ever told you the word no, and you don't like it. And it's like, you've had to heard the word no before in your life, and it's like,
had to, right?
You had, right? But for them, it's like, no, you're the first person telling me to deny me my freedom to want to do whatever I want. And it's like, well, this is the real world. You can't do whatever you want. I'm sorry. If I wanted to do whatever the hell I want, if I could do whatever the hell I want, guess what? I wouldn't be here. I can't. So like, I don't get it. Like, why you think in this world that you've created that you can, but you're awkward about it. You're not even like, there's not even sense about it, right? So I don't know if it was similar for you, especially when it's teaching these kids, from that time period, from before COVID to now. Like, what have you noticed, especially with young kids?
Everything you just said is the nail on the head, as they say, right? And hitting the nail on the head was what you just said. And coupling that with the parents who were also in the house with the kids, who now don't want their children to be told no. But to see that kids are like petrified, some of them, to go outside, right, or to make friends, right? So we can have something that really was eerie that happened was being on a bus, taking a group of kids on a field trip, and it hits you and you look around and you're like, man, the bus is like quiet. And you're like, wait a minute. So you look around and everybody's in their phone and their face is plastered to their phone and nobody's talking. They're not talking to each other. You're not telling them to be quiet. You're not like, none of that's going on, because they're all here, but they have someone next to them, right? And someone across the aisle, and there's kids. I mean, the bus is packed, but the kids aren't talking to each other. And so one of the things that we did, a policy we always had with our camp, was that we minimized technology usage with the kids, right? It was, we love technology for what it's good for, but when it comes to them socializing, we don't want phones at camp, right? If you need to use an AirPod to track your kid, whatever, I get it. If it's an emergency, I get it. But what we found was that the people that were calling during the day weren't their friends. It was their parents. So, I mean, like, their moms normally, right? Some dads would call, I just need to check on my baby to make sure they're fine. Ma'am, sir, they're fine. They were fine until you called them, then distracted them to make them think that something's wrong, because you're like, are you okay? And so I just started telling parents, listen, if you need to call your child during the day while they're at my camp, then they need to be at home with you, right? They don't need to be here with us. They need to be where you are so you can check on them, make sure they're okay, because, we're taking their phones and putting them up because they can't make a friend, right? Or what you find now is that, let's say a kid falls and hurts themselves, right? People are quicker to take out the phone to record the situation than, no, dude, go get some help. You're like, dude, are you all right? They're looking like, they're gotta like, and it's that, right? And so lots and lots of that, including everything that you just said, being told no. Children really have an issue with that, just being told no, being told to do something. There's a lot of feeling involved now with kids. Or I don't feel like you like me. I don't feel like, it's like, who cares about how you feel? I mean, do it. You know how you feel. You feel that I don't like you because I'm telling you, you have to put a hat on your head. It's 200 degrees in Atlanta. You're gonna burn it. You're gonna burn. Yes, you need to put a hat on. I don't care that it's gonna mess up your braids or your new hairdo or your, or here's another one. Don't like, and it's probably one that you may or may not have heard, but the way that children dress is different. They were at home. So one thing, when you're at home, think about it. What do you wear on your feet? You don't wear sneakers.
Nah.
You wear house shoes.
Yeah.
Okay. So then, you think about prior to like, who's my man? Who wore the yellow Crocs? I love his music. Come on. It's, that's my dude, man. Who wears it, sings a song with, has the country music, man, but him. Okay.
Yeah. I can't think of, I'm drawing a blank right now.
It'll hit us in a minute. But so all these kids are wearing Crocs, right? They're wearing slides, right? And I'm like, I tell the parents, look, they can't come to camp with Crocs and slides on. They can't. They have to wear a belt. They can't, like, there's no way I'm allowing that to go on. I'm like, you got on slides with dirty socks. Like, are you serious? Like, it's not happening. And so if they wear Crocs, you can't go on the field trip. You got to stay in the office till your parents bring you a pair of shoes. Yes, they have to get off of work, leave work, and come drop you off a pair of shoes, or your tail is going to sit here all day. You're not going anywhere because it created a lazy mentality with the kids. You're not inside anymore. You're outside. Put on some shoes. I don't need you cutting your foot on a piece of glass because you have on slides. I need you, so it's just a whole thing. That's a whole nother episode.
Yeah, no, I truly, I get it, because
there it is.
Yeah, there we go. I get it because these, so let's focus on the parents for a second. And in the parents, it's, I know when things happen around the world, there's this fear of like, hey, I don't want my kids to get hurt, right? And we want to protect our kids. And we always try to have our kids' best interest in mind. But we forget, we can get tunnel vision and forget that we're being reactionary to situations, and we're not responding as if we're, actual parents in charge, and what I mean by that is, kids nowadays, they'll start crying, throw fits, whatever it is, however they're right. And most parents will be like, hey, just take the iPad, take the phone, just go watch Bluey, go watch whatever, and go, just calm down, right? And you're just being reactionary, just like, hey, I just want it to stop. When it's like, hey, no. You're in charge of the parent, right? So we need to, bring them in and say, hey, what's going on? Why are you acting this way? Because, if their minds are going to develop is, if I get upset, that means I get my iPad. So, if I just get upset more, I get more iPad time. And so now it's going to equate to, I get more screen time. And now that screen is just, colors popping, doing everything, moving, all these things in their face. And again, it creates that awkwardness. But for parents, it's just like, oh, I finally get a break. And it's like, hey, I had to break it to you, but you get a break at night when your kids are asleep, right? Like, I'm sorry, like, hey, like, this is what you signed up for when you decided to procreate and raise kids. So therefore, your break will come at night. For now,
when they go to bed,
you need to raise your kids, right? Like, don't get me wrong. Go ahead. Yeah.
I'll say, if you're smart, you're going to put them on a sleep schedule so that they will go to bed at a certain time, so that you know that you have that time that you need. Yeah. Hey, stay up all night, man. You got to be kidding me. Hey, you never get time to yourself.
I know kids. I have friends who have kids, and they're like, yeah, they go to sleep whenever they want to. I said, that's crazy. Never in a million years. I said, my kids' bedtime is 8:00, and my kids are homeschooled. So, like, they're not going anywhere. Well, I mean, they are going. They go to different places, but still. 8:00, your behind is in bed. I don't care if you sit there and you stare at the ceiling, but you will be in bed by 8:00. Now, on the weekends, we might push it to 9 because, we want to hang out. Dad gets homework, gets late. I get work back from work late, and we want to hang out. Sure, we can do that. However, just know, 9 times out of 10, 8:00. Yes, you have until 8:00 to figure it out. We gonna have fun. We're gonna do all these things, but 8:00, kids, I expect you to be in bed. So that means bath time's probably gonna start at 7. Brushing your teeth, getting lotion on, mom doing the hair, making sure everybody's good to go, like putting the
All
pajamas
that.
on, like, hey, like that's
Yeah.
going to take some time because, you're going to fight me the entire time. So like, if
Yep.
you didn't fight me, it would take
Yeah.
like 20 minutes and we'd be good. But
You'd be
you want
good
to
to
take an
go.
hour?
Yeah.
We're going to take an hour. Right. So,
Yeah.
but again, I talking about kind of focusing on the parents in this sense is I think it scared parents too much to the point where they didn't know that they were scaring their kids. They didn't know that their reactions were scaring their kids in the sense of like, they don't know what's going on and their kids are looking to them to say, hey, mom, dad, when am I going to go back to school? When can I see my friends again? When can I do this? And the parents are like, well, I don't want anything to happen to them. So no, you can't go outside. But you're like, hey, I see kids outside, they're running around like, they're still working, playing with each other, whatever. They're like, no, it's dangerous outside. So you have put it in there. They have put in their head like, no, it's danger. There's danger if you go out there. To now, like I said, like, and again, it's so important how we impact our kids and the impact we have on our kids. To now where these kids are awkward, and I say awkward because
it's the truth.
It was truth. But like, I had a soldier. I have a soldier, man, and I told him he's this young kid, and he's one of those COVID babies, and I was telling him, I was like, hey, man, what are you doing? You spend your time doing? He's like, oh, I just kind of play video games. And I was like, you don't go out? Like, like you're single, 21-year-old, you can, go out, have fun, hang out with friends. There's other people around, go meet people. As we're in San Antonio, one of the biggest cities, in the United States. Go explore, go see something new. Go to Austin, go to Dallas, go to Houston, go explore, go do something. You just got to sit in your room and stare at your computer screen and play Xbox or PlayStation all day. And, he was like, yeah, no, I don't mind going out every so often, but, I just kind of like to hang out, chill in my room. See? And I was like, all right, do you got a girlfriend? Yeah, she lives in whatever place, another state. And I'm like, I get it, long distance relationships, but I was like, hey man, why? I mean, you get the most interaction you get with your girlfriend is over FaceTime. And I'm like, why? Like, I'm not saying break up with her. Like, if your relationship's going good, keep going. But like, I'm married, guys. I'm not trying to be, but I will tell you, if you've ever been to San Antonio, there's a lot of people in San Antonio. Like, there's not just like, there's a lot of options in San Antonio. So like, don't give, I'm not telling you to leave your spouse, leave your girlfriend, leave your boyfriend. I'm not telling you to do that. What I am going to tell you is, if it doesn't work out, it's going to be all right. And there are a lot of options. Okay. Trust me, there are a lot of options out there. And so, anyway, he's like, he goes, yeah, well, I don't know. We'll see. And then I heard him and his girlfriend were going through some things, but we got a new female soldier in the unit, and he was like, oh no, I think she's cute. And I was like, well, I mean, hey man, cool. Work is work. After work is, you guys are adults, as long as I don't hear about it, I'm good. And he's like, no, I can never talk to her. I was like, what do you mean you can never talk to her? What are you talking about? You can never talk to her.
Yeah.
I was like, you were just talking to her. He goes, yeah, but that was about work. I was like, okay, like, cool, because we're at work. But when we leave here, what is it to you to say, to be like, hey, you want to go hang out? I mean, we can get the group together. We can go. You want to go sit at the I don't know what, one of these Mexican restaurants and watch, get something to eat, watch the game, He's like, nah, I can never do that, Sarn. That's hard. I'm like, because she's like, it'd be awkward. And I'm a little awkward. I'm like, bro, get out of your shell and go explore. Like, I need you, like, and I try to tell him, I was like, you just got to go explore. I was like, you'll never know what it's like until you do that.
Absolutely.
And, so we got a lot of awkward kids now, and we got a lot of awkward people. And I'm just, like, hey, like, I'm an extrovert. I'm going to make you talk to me. And not in a bad way, but like, I love talking. So I'm like, we're gonna interact. Anyway, I promise I'm done with my rant on awkward kids.
Right.
Thanks for coming to my TED Talk, y'all, on that portion there. But SF. So like for you, you're doing these camps, you're doing the thing, you're doing your thing. Did it take a while for it to grow to what it is now? I mean, because we're always growing, but like in the beginning, did you feel like, hey, this isn't gonna work because it's just like I'm just not getting the feedback that I thought I was going to be getting?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I say that and I laugh because I absolutely had those moments, and at times still have them when I'm working on certain projects, right? I think that just the feeling of, is this gonna work, kind of never goes away.
Mm-hmm.
when you're working on projects, but that's part of the excitement of it.
Yeah.
And I mean, yeah, I mean, it's taking time, right? And when I say time, I mean just that. I mean, it takes, I mean, years to, first of all, the best way I can describe doing something, anything really, is that you're kind of, it's like being on one side of the woods and you got to get to the other side, but there's a destination, but you can't see it. Right, because it's different if you see a destination, okay, oh, it's
Mm-hmm.
east, or I need to go east. If I say east, then I know I'm going to eventually get in that area. There's a destination, but you can't see it. There's a road you got to take, but it's not paved. You have to carve it, right, or make the path. And there's just only a goal. And a lot of times you've never seen anyone do it before,
Mm-hmm.
right? So it's different a lot of times if there is like, okay, if you say, hey, look, I want to be, we'll just say, for example, I want to be, let's just say a doctor, right? You can see the destination, you can see a path. And so it's different than what I do, but there's still challenges along the path that will still make it a challenge. So yeah, lots of challenges, lots of ups and downs, lots of things. But what I've learned about it is that you just got to stick with it if it's something that you want.
Well, I think it's really true, because we set goals at times and then we start going through the brush and then we're like,
Yep.
this is just too hard. Like, and it's
Yeah.
like, I've seen all these great people, if you will, have success in this, and it's just not working for me. So maybe this is just not meant for me. And it's just like, if you would have just continued to taking 5 steps forward, you would have been in a clearing. And that's kind of like the first level of like, oh man, no, I'm doing this, right? I'm
Yeah.
really doing this.
Yeah.
Because I related to even doing the podcast. I started the podcast in March of 23,
Nice.
and I tell you, I was like June, July. I was like July to September, where I didn't really post it. I didn't post videos. I didn't do anything. And I was like, well, I mean, I guess this was a short-lived thing, a short-lived endeavor,
So it's
and
been fun. Yeah.
it's been fun. I didn't have a lot of subscribers. I didn't have a lot of people on Instagram. I was just kind of like, well, it just wasn't going to work out. And then something ended up happening where, one of my coworkers was doing his podcast thing. So me and him linked up and we did several episodes together. But that spark that I had, it was rejuvenated by us collaborating and doing an episode together. And I sit back and I think back and I say, hey, if I would have stopped, I'm like, man, I would not have met all these great people. I would have not have been able
Right.
to have this conversation and just have the
Right.
impact that I have now and meet the people that I
Right.
met.
Right.
And it's an amazing journey, difficult, but amazing,
Yeah.
because I can go back to my very first episode and I tell y'all, look at that thing. You might look at this thing now and you'd be like, oh man, he's figured it out. And I'm like, not really. I'm almost there.
Yeah.
It's just the final tweaks. But that first episode, let me tell you, it was whew. Look, I was in this room, the room I am now, the wall that's in front of me, that's what I was behind me. It was, and I had my phone. I had some lights, and I didn't know anything about lighting. I didn't know anything about audio. I didn't know anything about editing, but you ask me now and I'm like, hey, that light's a little too bright. Maybe you need to pull yourself back. You're the subject.
Right.
I've gotten into photography now. Like, that's a whole thing that is developed from here, but it's just amazing what grows from there. So for you, helping people for success, I mean, I guess my first question is, how do you define success?
Well, for myself, I mean, I think that success really boils down to doing what you love.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, it's doing what you love.
Yeah.
And the way that I talk to anyone about being successful, like I said, it's like, you're on one side of the woods, you got to get to the other side of the woods, but there's no destination, right? And so the first thing that you have to do with anything is to decide which way am I going to go, right? If I'm here, so I got to get a destination. And so I think that everyone's destination is unique to them. right? What is your version of success? One of the biggest mistakes that people make, especially now, is that we're looking at everyone else's version of success, trying to make it our own. When the reality is that the happiest you're going to be in your life is if you stop and say, what the heck do I want to do? What do I want to do? What do I want to do with my life? If I can't figure out what I want to do with my life, what do I want to do today? That's what I want to do today. Okay. I understand I probably have to do today. Okay, fine. But once I'm done with that, what do I want to do with the time I have? And that to me is the start of success, because, two people who could be the best of friends see success differently. Some people equate it to having a lot of money. Some people equate it to having wonderful health.
Yeah.
Some people equate it to having a bunch of friends. Other people are like, I just want to be left the heck alone. Right. So but if you don't if you don't define your own version of success, you can never truly be happy. And at the end of the day, success then really is happiness. It's really happiness. I mean, it's really happiness. It's not complicated when you really think about, okay, success is just really being happy. It's not about anything else. So if you have the things in your life that make you happy, and you're pursuing other things in your life that will make you happy, you're successful.
Yeah. I think that I asked that question because a lot of people will hit their first roadblock and they'll say, well, I failed. I have failed at success. I have failed at being the next Gary Vee. I have failed at being the next Dwayne The Rock Johnson and having a wonderful acting career. I failed at being the next Kevin Hart and being comedian. So therefore, because I hit this roadblock and I can't seem to get past this roadblock because I don't know how to get around this roadblock because I don't have the experience to get around this roadblock yet, that means I failed, and that means I should just go back to working a monotonous 9 to 5 and just hate my life every single day because I have other responsibilities. And, I think that mindset of like using someone else's, almost vision board as your frame of success is your first failure, because you were never going to reach that vision board in the first place because you don't have the vision for it. You just have, there's usually one aspect of that vision board that you like that you're saying, well, because there's one aspect of it, that means their vision board is my vision board as well. Right. And it's like, no, I have aspirations to run an Ironman, to participate in an Ironman.
Right.
You may just want to get in shape. And you're like,
there you go.
Hey, I'm ready to get in shape.
Right.
You're running to do an Ironman. God, we're on two different spectrums here, right?
Right. Or somebody's running because they want to, they're like, look, and it's the motivation, right? It's up under the whole thing. I was, here you go. So I was at an event earlier today, and one of the things that the lady said, she said, my mother died of cervical cancer at 69. He said, my prayer, she said, was to outlive my mother, right, as far as years. And she said, so on January 6th, she turned 69, and that she had made it to 69. And so she was like, that was a success for her, but her motivation was that she wanted to outlive her mom. Now, someone else may say, well, man, I just want to be older because I want to, I don't know, party or do whatever. And so the things and sacrifices or challenges that she had to endure to meet that goal meant a lot more to her than, let's say, maybe someone else who may have just said, look, I'm not even thinking about what age I want to be at. Right. So, the why, so then it comes down to like your why is really what helps people get through those failures. And I don't really look at them as failures anymore. I look at them as attempts, and that kind of changes the perspective of what it is that you're doing. So the best way to describe that is a baby. Okay. Now here it is. You have this crying thing that can't talk. It can't say anything, but it knows how to cry. And when a baby first learns how to walk, I mean, I'd like to see the statistics on it just to know how many times does a baby fall before they learn to walk. And then when they finally learn to walk, how many times do they fall when they're trying to run and just right and they fall and they cry and they right, but they get through it. A baby understands the importance of attempts. They understand the importance of it's just part of the process that you're not going to get it the first time. I mean, if you think about it, if either of your daughters started walking and never failed the first time they stood up, you would be like, yo, we're taking this show on the road. We're going to make money. You know what I mean? Like, yo, like, she just stood up and she's 11 and she's never fallen down ever. It would just be interesting. And the thing is that what happens with people when they don't experience these attempts or failures is that you imagine someone that's never fallen down their whole life. Okay. 7 years, never fallen down. And then they actually fall down one day. Now they got to get up and they got to do it again because they've never fallen. So that's where the fear of failure comes in. What if I fall again? Well, hell, you done fell. If you've never fallen before, then it becomes a thing. But if you kind of embrace the fact and you realize that this is just part of the process and that I was successful, that I'm already successful, even though I'm having these attempts, then it doesn't hit you as hard.
Well, I think I think what you said is wonderful, and truthfully, it's a magnificent thought process, and I would even call it a thought game because let's take it from the perspective of the parents for a moment, right? As the parents, when our kids start walking and they fall, they get back up, we understand that it's part of the process. We understand that, like, hey, you're falling now, but in a couple of weeks, you're going to be okay walking around. And without holding on to the wall, without slipping, whatever, you're gonna have a better grasp of what your body is and how to maneuver, right? And here's a sec, don't miss what I just said there, right? Within a couple of weeks, right? And so when we pursue a goal, when we say, "Hey, I'm going to set this goal in front of me," and 6 months go by, and we say, "Well, I haven't done. It doesn't seem to be working, and my goal is not accomplished, whatever," because we live in a very microwave style culture or society where we want things within 30 seconds. Well, in 6 months, if you're not, the wealthiest person alive, you're like, well, I failed.
Right.
But again, if you think back to that moment when your kids started walking, you're like, oh, hold on. That took overall, if you had to start from start to finish where your kids start wanting to learn to walk or stand, first it started with standing up, sitting down, standing up, sitting down. And then it went to the actual, they were able to stand up for a few seconds, but then they felt like that. Going through that process, you find out like, okay, that took that took a few months, maybe 6 months and some change, right? For them to actually get the concept of we're walking into the store now and they're holding my hand versus I'm have to carrying them. And it's so wonderful. Like, and real quick, I almost finished here, but it's wonderful because, like I said, when you apply that logic to your goals, you start to realize, crawl, walk, run, and you start to be like, got it, okay. So when you set a goal, you set the time frame that I set here was actually like not a plausible time frame for me, right? So maybe I do need 5 years. So when I started Mediocre Dads and I said, I was like, hey, I want to monetize Mediocre Dads and I want to really start. And that's when that's how I will say, hey, Mediocre Dads is successful. I gave myself 5 years and I have a clothing brand. I have a few different things, videos, whatever, doing all that, right? Still not technically monetized. However, all the things that I'm doing right now to set the roadmap is for by the time I get to that 5-year mark, I can be like, I did everything I was supposed to actually say, boom, I'm going to be monetized and I'm making money from it and it's moving. But it's going to take time. And that 5 years seems like a long time, but it's already been, what is 2 to 3 to 4? It's only, on 2 years now, right? Where it's like, holy crap, 2 years moves around really fast. So that's what I tell people. And that's what I was trying to, but that's what I think about. That's where my mind goes in that regards. And when I really think about time, but you were going to say something that I don't want to miss it. What were you going to say?
We were talking about a baby and when they start walking.
Well, yeah. And the time frame that it's going to take. Yeah.
And I was listening to what you were saying and then it hit me that, if we really break it down, when a baby learns to walk, a baby, and I don't know the science on it, but just, humor me for a minute. My thought is that a baby learns to walk. They start learning to walk when they come out. because it starts with movement, right? So this baby comes out, and at first they're not moving at all. They're just here, right? They got to learn. There's a whole thing that is so many processes that have to happen before a kid can learn to walk. Before you learn to walk, you got to learn how to eat. You got to learn how to drink. You got to learn how to use the bathroom. You got to learn. I mean, there's all of these steps before you can start walking, right? And then you get to this place where you're moving, and a baby will start moving their legs and moving their fingers, and we think that's cute. And then they start moving in their legs, and then they have tummy time, and they're looking up, and then they start scooting, right? They'll scoot, right? And so it's just like, man, like we really break it down. There's a lot of steps that go into it, and it really takes a long time for a kid to learn how to walk. You almost feel like it's going to be forever when you first get them. Like, God, dog, like, man. And then once they start walking, you're like, God, they get in everything, right? You got to really really like baby proof your house. It's like, man, they can touch and grab anything now. And so, but it takes time. And that's one of the bigger issues with kids now and just the generation, is that they don't understand that it takes time, and that you want it to take time because you want it to last. Social media and just different, TV has, I can't even blame it on that. It's just we have allowed ourselves to believe that things take, 30 seconds, that it only takes, I can start a business today and next week I'm going to be rich. No, it's because you meet that one person that did do it. I mean, man, there's no telling how that actually happened. Maybe it happened just how they said it did, but 99% of people, it's going to take some time, and that's okay. What are you going to, you're going to take the time anyway, but I mean, with the baby now, I mean, it takes time for a kid to learn how.
And it's like you said, like, they start by seeing you walking and understanding, okay, that is walking. They start by seeing you talking, and they're like, oh, that's what talking is. Okay, now their brains are just like, okay, now I have to understand them. Now they understand you. Now they're trying to repeat you, and now they're trying to repeat within the body, with your body language, how you move, how you walk around, how you swing your arms. They're watching. Their brain is interpreting. It's a computer. It's interpreting and saying, okay, how do I do that thing right there?
How do I do that?
Yeah. And, and I say all that because I think it's really important when you apply it to your goals that you set in front of you, because everyone says, I want success. And, one of my favorite questions is when I ask I remember my buddy, he's like, hey, I want to, let's go into business together. And I was like, okay, what do you want to do? What do you have in mind? And we started chatting about, potential real estate options and different things. And I said, okay, well, let me ask you a question. I said, what is your number? And he goes, well, what do you mean? I said, before you get into anything, I think it's important, especially with money, in mind, you want to make money from this and, whatever the case might be. I said, what is your number? And he was like, well, I never really thought about that. I said, I think it's important that you think about this. I said, because if you go into this with you saying with infinity is your number, you are going to be chasing infinity for a very, very long time. I'm sorry, for the rest of your life. And I was like, what is your number? And he goes, I might have to think about that. He goes, well, since you asked me, he goes, what is your number? I said, this is my number. I said, this is why. I said, I want to make $200,000 from my businesses. I said, I will have kind of a regular job, if you will, at the time. But if my businesses are making upwards of $200,000 of profits, I said, then I will say I am successful. And I said, now that's a big number, right? $200,000 profits from just a business and still working some sort of regular job, if you will. I said, that's a hefty number, and it's going to require a lot of work. But I said, I'm willing to put in the work to get to that number or get close to that number, where that means I potentially don't have to do this regular job anymore, right? And I was like, won't. Yeah, and you, right, you know what I'm saying? Because truthfully, when you're making $200,000 from just from a side hustle, you don't have time for that anymore, right? Profit, right, exactly.
The profit, you'll be like, look, check it. It's been a great time, ladies and gentlemen. And you might not even say, what you might do is really tell everybody how you really felt about them. You know what? You right there. Every time you come in, and you might leave a coffee cup. Yeah.
Right. And I told, and he goes, oh, well, I guess, if I had to put a number on it, I said, no, don't give me your answer now. I said, I want you to really think about it. I was like, because I've thought about this for a long time because I love business and I've always wanted to start my own business. I was like, I've thought about this for a long time. I said, so you now need to determine what that's going to look like for you. I said, because I'm gonna be honest, we can go get a property and we can put it on listed on Airbnb and we can have people in the house like that, right? We've done all this thing. The overhead was this much. But hey, we got people in the property and it's ready to go. I said, but like the reality is, we're not going to see a profit, and a genuine profit. Like me and you are not going to get paid until 3 to 5 years until afterwards. And I was like, you have to be prepared for that. I was like, but you also have to be prepared for the work that comes to that. And I was like, that doesn't mean money's not coming in. It just means the money that we're getting, we're not paying us. We're putting it back into the business because we need the business to be self-sufficient, not but at a point where it can survive without the level of work that we're putting into it right now at this given moment. Right. And I was like, hey man, I don't know if you've ever thought about that. And I was like, that's just one aspect of it. I was like, but that for me was saying, hey, this is where I had determined success to be. I said, I have determined success to be $200,000 a year in profits from said businesses. Once that's there, hey man, if I make more, glory to be to God. If I don't, I'm all good. I reached it. It's good to go. I can say that I did it. I know I was able to do it, and I was able to accomplish one of my goals. And for those who are listening, and if you hear $200,000 profits, let me tell you, I would like to own a barbershop and I would like to own a coffee shop. So I do think 200,000 profit is very plausible or possible. I'm not saying $200,000 from the podcast. No. I want to own a coffee shop and I want to own a barbershop. I don't know how to cut hair and I want to get free haircuts. Essentially, that's one. Number two, I love coffee. So,
there you go.
Look, there's the mix. I found it. I found my niche. Every time I go to a coffee shop, I'm like, okay, I'm going to steal that idea. I like how you got, all right, no, you know what? I see what y'all working with here. I know what that machine does because I've done my research. Anyway, that's the investments in there for me. So go ahead.
I have a book for you when we're done that I want to recommend to you that you check out and that you read that I think will be right up your alley. With what you just said. So when we get done, don't let me forget to recommend it to you because and we'll talk offline about it. But I have one that when you said it, and I'm like, it's when you said something, and I read a book, and I'm thinking about I was on a plane and I read a book, and I was like, why am I reading this book? And I read the book. And I read through the book and I got something out of the book. But what I got out of the book was another book to read. But if I wouldn't have read the book, I wouldn't have been able to hear you say what you just said just now and be like, bro, I got a book that I want you to read. That I got a book that with when you read the book and you hear just what person has done, and then I've heard what you tell me that you do. I got a book for you to read. Bro. And so I'm excited that I didn't mean to cut off what you're saying, but I'm excited that you were willing to share what it is that you want to do and just your passion for it, because I have a book that I want you to read that I'll have to go and grab the book. I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, oh God, what was the name of the book? What was that? And it's a good book, but I can't remember the name. I can't remember the author unless I think about it, but it's a good book, but I think that it'll bless your life, and give you some of the stuff, some ideas, is really what it's going to do. Is some ideas that I think you will absolutely love, man. But, I think that what it is that you want to do, which I'm sure you already know this, that is absolutely possible. And, and the thing is that, we set goals, and what happens is that when we get to this goal, it's never how we thought it was going to be. The meaning that it's either going to be, oh man, I set this goal and I'm like far exceeded where I thought I was going to be during this time. Or it's, whoa, I set this goal and I'm not where I want to be yet. And then that's where where the perspective shift has to happen. Right. And it's very important for any person that wants to have any level of success in anything in their life is to be able to not tighten the screws so tight that you can't unloose them to be able to change something, right? If I have a light bulb and I screw that light bulb in too tight, when the light bulb goes out and that's too tight, to try to change the light bulb, I'm going to break the light bulb.
Yeah.
We've all done it.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah.
But it's just being in a position that when I see things happen and it may or may not be where I want it to be, good or challenging, that I'm able to shift my perspective so that I could be able to keep going. And a lot of times people aren't able to shift their perspective to keep going. And one of the ways to keep yourself, one of the best ways that I have found to keep going, and this is gratitude.
Yeah.
Gratitude. It's almost like penicillin. Like it's like the cure all, like gratitude. You wake up in the morning and you may or may not, it's always going to be something, first of all, right? There's always going to be something that is like, I wish that wasn't that way. But gratitude covers that up if you focus on it correctly. So I wake up, I'm like, oh God, I got to start another day. It's dark outside. I'm like, nobody should wake up when it's dark outside. I want to wake up when the sun comes up, right? It's dark outside. It's cold outside, and I got to go outside. Okay, thank you for my wife. Thank you for my kids. Are you ready? Honey, I'm not going through this whole thing. Because if not, it's not going to do it. So gratitude.
Well, yeah, I think that's one of the. It seems like the simplest answer. I tell people all the time, some of the simplest answers will solve a lot of our problems. It's just, a lot of people are not in the position to receive the simplest answer. And, like you said, I do believe that gratitude is one of the best things that a person can do and have when they are striving to accomplish something. And or even just in you, regardless of whether you're not striving, it's just another day. You're waking up, you're going to work. It changes the perspective that you have of before, where it's like Mondays were always dreaded, but now you're like, man, another opportunity to really show myself that I have more in the gas tank. I can really succeed here in this aspect of my life that I have felt like that I wasn't succeeding in. And whether that's something as simple as a fatherhood, right? Oh man, this past month has been phenomenal. I spent some time with my kids. I've actually stopped being selfish and I decided, hey, I'm going to do what they want to do. And, some of the things they want to do, I definitely don't want to do. But guess what?
Right. Yeah.
Our relationship has grown and I love seeing the excitement and the joy on their face, and you're happy because they're happy. And you're like, you know what? Hey, I'm going to keep doing it. I'm happy now. Like, and there's that genuine gratitude that you have, like, hey, thank you, Lord, for blessing me with these amazing kids that have this ingenuity in their minds to want to do all these things. Like, my daughter wants to do woodwork. Guys, I don't know anything about woodwork, but holy crap, are we Home Depot? I'm about to go learn.
Yeah, I'm about to do some real work. Yeah,
I'm about to go figure it out, until she gets bored of it and says, Dad, I'm good. And then we move on to something else. But guess what? I just learned a skill that my daughter thought I was already proficient at. I'm telling you, she thought she thinks I already know about what she saw me do a project. I did an accent wall in my master bedroom. And so by her seeing me do that, she's like, oh yeah. No, you know what to do. You already know all about what you got all this, you know what I'm saying? Like, and don't get me wrong, I'm proud of myself, but I can still see some of the blemishes she can't see because all she sees is like, gosh, look at what my dad did. Look at what this is phenomenal. Right. And I say y'all, because I think, and for me at least, I can't speak for y'all, but I'll speak for me, is at the end of the day, it's all about my kids. It's all about the being able to wake up in the morning. I have healthy children. They love their parents. They love me, and obviously love me. I love them. Me and my wife love them, and we pour into them every day. We get a new opportunity just to enjoy being with each other and just be able to make memories. And I think that's what it's all about at the end of the day, because I do want to make money, enough money where I don't have to rely on, working the 9 to 5 where I'm gone all the time. But I also want my kids to be invested in it as well, where they're like, man, this is really cool what my dad has created. And he's included me in this process. And, this is something that could be mine one day. And I want my kids to know, like, hey, like this is all for you. And so, including them is very essential, very important to me. So I know I spent a lot of time dumping on kids, y'all, because especially this generation of kids who unfortunately had to go through COVID, right? COVID was unfortunate. It was a thing that happened. We were initially all scared, but I think over time, at one point you have to break apart about from what society is telling you to do and really just live again, because it's going to take some time for the curve, if you will, to flatten out, where kids are back into that mindset of like, hey, I'm sitting next to a person on the bus that I've never met. And rather than being glued to my screen, I can look up and be like, hey, where are you from? Oh, really? Cool. Where did your family? Oh, your dad's military? Oh, my dad's military too. What's your brand? And then next thing you know, you have a friend. And growing from there, I think that's really the connection that we have with each other as human beings. Can be digital because these are tools. I tell people all the time, technology is a tool. It's not meant to be the thing that and how on how communication works. It's just a tool to help you communicate. And so I think we discern the difference between those things and apply that to it when we're teaching our kids. Because I think, man, oh man, you see kids running around outside again. I get excited when I see kids at the park, because I'm like, you know what? That's what my childhood was.
That's a kid right there.
And that's what kids should be doing. They're drawing on the slides. They're putting, doing, over pictures, whatever. Like, don't get me wrong.
Right.
Well, I did it as a kid. That's what we did as kids. But guess what? I'm happy to see it, because that means kids were here having fun. Now, please stop drawing on slides, y'all, because that's taxpayer money that we have to use to clean up here. However, please keep going to the park, because I think it's fun. I enjoy seeing the kids run around. Lets me know y'all being kids, seeing y'all playing basketball. So that being said, that's all I got. Hey, Esa, before you got in here, where can people find you? Where can people find out some more information if they're interested?
So the two ways. One, IG, of course, they can go to SF Dreams Big, and they will see my smiling face there with anything they have going on. And then the website is GoSFB.com, GOSFB.com. And SFB stands for Succeeding from Believing, but it's GoSFB.com. And they can get more information about me, or not about me, but more about themselves and the things that we can do to be able to help them. Just information about, the camps and everything that we have.
That's awesome. Hey, y'all. Hey, all of the stuff, his Instagram link, the website link, it will be in the description below. Go check it out. I always encourage y'all, go check out my guests, because I have guests on, and it's not just to have people on, so I'm not talking to myself, but it's genuinely because I want you guys to have the tools, right? Because so many of us think that we're alone in this journey of parenting, and you do not realize the tools that are out there are available to you, where you're just like, oh my goodness, if I would have known that was there. Or I know an aunt who's struggling, who needs that, or uncle who's like, hey, they could use those tools. It's going to help them, drastically help them. So I appreciate you coming on, SF. Hey, guys, as usual, I love it. Catch y'all next time. And of course, remember that being mediocre is a choice, and you have to refuse to be mediocre every single day. That's all I got. Mediocre Dads out.